Oh, the humanity. Checo Perez's 2-year deal, multi-year deal extension. It just still doesn't even make no sense. And you guys are telling me that I'm being a bit harsh on Checo Perez. Really? Really? Listen, I've said a million times on this channel that what we aren't going to do is sacrifice truth and objectivity, especially as far as how we critique drivers and their performance at the altar of partisanship. Yeah, Checo Perez is a really nice guy, but tell me the honest truth, non-rhetorical question. Does he deserve a 2-year deal with the likes of Liam Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda, Danny Rick waiting in the wings, and then expand out that driver's net ever so slightly further? You got to talk about Teo Pourchaire and Felipe Drugovich, F2 champions both, neither one of whom have a seat currently in F1. And you mean to tell me Checo Perez is deserving of a 2-year contract? Remember, for the avoidance of doubt, F1 is a game where "what have you done for me lately" is the mantra each and every single time. I'm not extending back my analysis of Checo Perez, Mexican Minister of Defence's performance, to his heyday 2021 settings, where he was absolutely incredible in defending, causing nightmares to Lewis Hamilton. Indeed, some may say that he was instrumental in Max Verstappen winning the championship, and so by extension Christian Horner, team principal of the Bulls that are red, keeping his job. But what have you done for us and me lately, Checo Perez? Nothing that I can remember. As far as my memory serves, at the last Grand Prix, you didn't even manage to get out of Q1. Now, temper that obviously with balance. The car wasn't perfect, but yet and still, setup issues notwithstanding, lateral stiffness of the suspension obviously causing issues as far as curbing. Max was avoiding them completely. And of course, there is lap time in the ability to curb, ride the curbs even, at the Monte Carlo circuit per Charles Leclerc. However, that car doesn't become a dog overnight. Checo Perez, this is a difference in extents, not kinds. And you mean to tell me that courtesy of a bit of curbing or lack thereof, that you couldn't make it out of Q1? Not Q2, chat. Q1. Oh, the humanity. And again, if F1 is process focused and not outcome focused, lest we forget that he very nearly took out his teammate, a la Valtteri Bottas at Hungary in 2021, turned that RB20 into a bowling ball going into turn 1, completely outbraked himself and was millimetres away from collecting one Max Emilian Verstappen. I would be keen, let's play hypotheticals. I would be super keen to see, had he collected Maximilian Verstappen, whether we'd be having a different conversation today. 2, I would be keen to see whether, had Christian Horner not fallen foul of some allegations earlier on in the season around the PA, and had Checo Perez not backed his team principal unequivocally, I would be keen to see whether we were having a different conversation today. My spidey senses tell me that potentially we would be, and that's techie, isn't it? Because in a world of F1 where you're led to believe that everything is meritocracy, that per Toto the boy who cried wolf, the stopwatch never lies, surely then in that world, if that's the context within which we shape this conversation, then surely Checo Perez doesn't deserve a contract. Now, Checo Perez fans around the world are going to tell me that I'm being too harsh. I think that's ball feathers, and I will call it out each and every single time. Absolute nonsense that Checo Perez can get 2 years and Esteban Ocon gets sacked. Yuki Tsunoda, apparently they're not going to release from his contract. What are we doing here? Liam Lawson again waiting in the wings, no sign of life. Unless we forget that Liam Lawson potentially, he has a clause in his contract that unless he gets a seat this year, I want to say, or next, he's free to go, right? Free to sign for another team. What are we doing here? The likes of Ollie Behrman are coming through, Kimi Antonelli. The road to F1 grows ever more congested. And that, I think, is why I'm a bit perturbed or this Checo Perez. Not a 1+1. The same 1+1 that they gave Lewis Hamilton and typically roll out for drivers who are over 30 years old. Not a 1+1. A 2-year multi-deal. Like, that's bonkers. What are we doing, Macon? Genuinely, Macon, Steve, I have no... he gives me no case. I don't know what to... Literally lost for words. I love me some Checo Perez. Back in the day, the dude was god tier. He's a nice guy, ostensibly by all accounts. But yet and still, I find myself amazed. That's the word that I'm looking for, right? Amazed at the fact that on merit, he's earned himself a multi-year contract in the dominant car as at June of 2024. What are we doing? This is bonkers. We need a billionaire, says Visual, to create a spec series with renewable energy V10s to Visual, you're having a laugh, aren't you? Andretti Global can't even get into the sport, and we're are those the barriers to entry? Don't we think that's a bit ambitious, Visual? When all this other stuff is going on that's fugazi, Checo Perez getting a multi-year deal, mate. Got no chance, Eddie. This proves my point that Max is a total hype job. Behave yourself, Eddie. How does that even work? I can't even indulge that meaningfully, Eddie. How is Max just a hype job? Anytime somebody rolls out a thesis like that, I'm reminded of 2021, where a couple of things happened that year that I didn't ever think I'd see. Most notably, Silverstone sprint. Like, I just drive away from Lewis Hamilton at Silverstone in equal-ish machinery. I don't know about that, Eddie. I can't engage it meaningfully. What's Kenny saying? Welcome to the politics and stupid. It is political, isn't it? That's all that it can be. That's the conclusion that this whole Checo Perez circumstance leaves me with. When I put together the video of the day, like I almost did a 4 pros and cons of Checo Perez. And of course there is money. Carlos Slim is like 100 billionaire or whatever. Checo Perez has his backing. Ergo, Checo Perez will be bringing in a lot of money into the bulls that are red. Not to mention that 60% of all the merchandise sold, Red Bull merchandise sold globally, is in Mexico. He has a massive following, and of course there's money in this. It is F1, and monetary aspect will always be in there. But surely, if you're performing so badly, even if there is a debt of gratitude to be paid, surely we want to have an honest and grown-up conversation. The opportunity cost is great when you consider Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda, both of whom I would argue have been performing over the past 12 months better than Checo Perez. So what are we doing here? Andrew Benson writes a brilliant article, by the way, half of which is dedicated to the 2-year extension of Checo Perez's contract. The other half is dedicated to Max Verstappen. And here I think it might be the second leg of the story. The first leg driving this story is, of course, the Christian Horner fiasco and the fact that Checo Perez was quite open and honest. His unequivocal support of Christian Horner would not have gone unnoticed. Worthy of note, 100% that goes into this. You've got to take that into account. The second leg of this, however, are you going to tell me that Red Bull would have extended Checo Perez 2 years if they knew 100%, if they were sure that Max Verstappen wasn't going anywhere? Non-rhetorical question. Sliding doors impact. All of these allegations has given rise to all of this. Take away the allegations and take away, therefore, Checo Perez's unequivocal support before the world's press and media. I'm not sure he gets the 2 year. I'll be honest. This time last year, Horner and Marku talked ad infinitum about the risk of giving Checo an extensive contract, making him laissez-faire, rest on his laurels then. So why now? What's different? What variables? You guys tell me in the chat, what are the variables that have changed year on year between 2-4 and 2-3? Because something's changed, right? The way they're treating and talking about Checo, there is a debt to be paid. And Max Verstappen, I think, is having conversations, isn't he, in real time? Oh, the humanity. It only gets techier and techier. Can we have a vote? Who needs to move on and out of F1? All of them, Steve. A lot of them. No, here's the answer to your question, Steve. K-Mag needs to go and Logan Sargent absolutely needs to go. The rest can do the okie doke and shuffle around. There will be driver silly season. Danny Rick potentially put him in there, making I can't figure out what's best for Haas. Bloody no, we're going that deep into silly season. So Haas, who are Haas gonna have? So sign Hulkenberg. Who's the other Haas driver? Apparently they could be in for one Esteban Ocon potentially. So Esteban potentially will end up at either Haas or Sauber to come Audi. One of those two. Yeah, no, it's... What's Madeline saying? Seen this before. Mercedes with Bottas, Ferrari with Barrichello. Nothing surprising here. Madeline only, it's a different circumstance, right? If, Madeline, here, your thesis stands up. If Red Bull can continue their dominance, this story will be a nothing story, right? In 3 to 4 months' time. If they continue in this vein, then having Checo Perez as a second driver won't make it. No, never mind, right? It's a non-story. It will be like last year when Max Verstappen will go on and win the Constructors by himself. However, if past this prologue and this is the latter stages of a rule and reg set and the rest continue to catch up Red Bull and bridge that delta, reduce the quantum between Red Bull and the rest, then we could have ourselves a circumstance, particularly if not the drivers, definitely around the constructors. And that apparently is where the teams earn all their money. Esty Bestie, cringeworthy visual. I feel for the chap. I do feel for Esty Bestie, but he's so bloody cringeworthy. I mean, God, can't even do that. Like, even when he bloody podiumed at Monaco and that was his celebration, I was like, oh, God. Esteban Ocon, please, mate, spare me the cringeworth. Too much. Bottas to Haas, if Sainz to Williams. Over Esteban, Matt. I'm not even potentially. Who would you guys have? Would you prefer Bottas over Esteban? How old is Bottas? You might argue that his potential, at least the length that he's got left in his F1 career, is exponentially less than Esteban's. I don't know. You know what? As good as Bottas is, he's showing in 2021 has put me off. I still blame him partially, or his no-show at least, for Lewis not winning that season. There was a couple of races there, Abu Dhabi in particular, where he was just everything that Checo Perez did as far as intervening, playing a material role in deciding which way that championship trophy went. Valtteri Bottas did the opposite. He was a no-show. Again, as brilliant as a driver as he can be when he's ready. Valtteri Bottas in critical clutch times in 2021. He was a ghost, wasn't he? Michael Haas need 2 new drivers, could take both. Hulkenberg, well, Hulkenberg's already signed, hasn't he, Michael? So not too necessarily. But yeah, I can't wrap my head around this Checo stuff. It's beggars belief. On the day when Charles Leclerc's EP tops the US Billboard Classical Crossover Album charts, of course. Something that we're all interested in, of course. Chris Medden, by the way, tweets out Horner saying, this is what Horner said. And I think this tells a story, you know, I'll be honest with you. Now is an important time to confirm our lineup for 2025. Why now? Why now, Christian? On the back of material underperformance over the past couple of races. Why now, Christian? Be true and clear and honest and fair. Why now? I want you guys to tell me why now. What's going on, New Old School? Why now, Christian? Be true. Why now? And we are very pleased, continues Christian Horner, courtesy of Chris Medland, legend of F1 journalism, to continue working together with Checo. It doesn't even sound... Read those words and it sounds disingenuous. Said through gritted teeth, continuity and stability are important for the team. Yeah, go on then, Christian. Let's break this down. Why is he talking about continuity and stability? Now, I think on the back of the allegations, they are still unstable. There is still questions around Max Verstappen and where his future. By the way, Max Verstappen has a contract through to 2028. But that's not to say, courtesy of the Helmut Marko clause, that he can't leave whenever he wants. He has them by the danglies, does Max Verstappen, and they need to bend the knee to him to keep him happy. And this multi-year contract may well be part of the appeasement, right? Checo's not going to cause Max Verstappen any issues. Like, what do you mean? Checo can't get close to... Checo can't even get out of Q1. I joke, but if that's the criteria to get that job, not getting out of Q1 and not beating Logan Sargent on 4 of 28 occasions, then give that job to me, surely. Like, I can... Do you know what I mean? I can get that done, surely. Not get out of Q1 in Monaco. I'm the guy. The guy for the job. Continuity and stability are important for the team, and both Checo and Max are a successful and robust partnership. Partnership? Really? Can you call a one-man band that goes and secures the constructors by himself a partnership? Really? That's a misnomer, surely. Disingenuous. All far too techie. The end of Red Bull, says Selvin. I'm not sure we'll take it that far, but they are now more vulnerable than ever. And listen, this all might prove a tad premature, especially if at the Canadian Grand Prix this weekend to come, they can start nailing curbs. They've tinkered with their setup. Not so stiff laterally is their suspension, etc., etc. Max Verstappen, if that's the case, Max Verstappen will be dominant again at least. But there ain't no telling, right? That's not to say that McLaren aren't still going to converge. They've all got the sexy aero still going on now by virtue of torsion bars. And again, there's a brilliant article in AMUS that talks about this extensively. New old school Jomo, greetings fan. Had to jump on a live. Yeah, we're doing the lives, man, more and more. I just can't. Listen, especially when I feel a way about Checo Perez's multi-year contract. I had to jump on and chop it up with you guys. My guess is Max's contract has more outs than Aviodra. Well, the key Macon is the Helmut Marko clause. That states for Max Verstappen that if Helmut Marko is no longer part of the Bulls that are red team, then Max Verstappen can leave as and when he wants. Helmut Marko, they need to keep Helmut Marko on side. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's not the only clause in his contract. Clearly, the uncertainty around Max has had something to do with this multi-year bombshell contract that Checo Perez has just signed. Did you guys see his message on Instagram, by the way? Checo Perez, yeah, I'm still keen to give 100%. We've got a lot of races, a lot of race victories ahead of us. I mean, beggars, but he just can't even take them seriously. It's bonkers. So Lewis P1 all weekend. I can only dream. New old school. Even as you read that back, mate, you can't even. I can't even engage that meaningfully. It'd be beautiful. And Lewis is a very good driver around Canada, right? Did he not get his first victory ever in 2007 around this track? He goes well. But listen, if you don't have the car nor the wheels underneath you, then mission impossible, isn't it? And don't get me started on Mercedes. Having just chopped it up with my guy Peter Windsor, the foibles and the travails of that Mercedes team. Oh, the humanity. I don't know who have been more incompetent over the past 24 months. The boys and girls over at Brackley and Brixworth, or Checo Perez. Who's dropped the ball more times? I don't even know. Like the Mercedes is still languishing in the midfield with all of their resource and their historic legacy knowledge around how to build a car. Like, what are we doing? Honestly, new old life. Mate, don't even get me started on the scorched earth stuff. Crystal says, is this the end of Helmut Marko? Absolutely not, Crystal. How could it be the end of Helmut Marko if indeed there is that Helmut Marko clause in Max Verstappen's contract? Helmut will go wherever Max goes. If you see Max at Mercedes, you better believe that Helmut Marko will be there with him. They come as a package deal. In fact, they're a trinity, aren't they? Joss, Max and Helmut. That's it. Yeah, they come as a package deal. And that's half the reason, apparently, why they didn't go for Carlos Sainz Jr. Because he, in turn, comes as a package with his father, right? Carlos Sr. And a lot of the reason why they didn't get on back in the day, 2015-16, was because the two driving dads in Joss and Carlos Sainz Sr. weren't big fans of each other. It's hard to deal with the soccer moms, aka Joss and Carlos Sr., right? Both in the garage at the same time, both wanting different things and both wanting the best to optimize for their son's F1's career. Like, do you know what I mean? Good luck, as if Christian Horner needs any more managerial balls with which to juggle. I think he's still got a few with the allegations still going, or the remnants of the allegations still going on in the background. It's so sad, says New Old School, so sad that Mercedes F1 have dropped the ball so many times. Yeah, you know what though, New Old, I will say this about F1. This is half the reason why I was drawn to F1 in the first place, right? As far as it being a meritocracy, that nobody has a God-given right to win the championships, regardless of how many constructors they have. In Mercedes' case, 8. A record-breaking 8, one might say. Got to earn this thing. And some say Mercedes set themselves up for failure indeed, owing to the way that they've been building their car, even in the most dominant of periods. Downforce wasn't inbuilt, it was tacked on. Brilliant article on the race about this somewhere buried. But they didn't build in this aerodynamic efficiency in the way that Adrian Newey had all the way through the early 2010s. So from 2014-15, whilst the Red Bull was underpowered, Adrian Newey was always building in this his aerodynamic brilliance, God tier suspension, etc., etc. Hence, at the end of 2021, when the new regs kicked off, they already had a car that was almost optimized for it. That's why they could afford not to divest out of their 2021 design, right? Still continue developing that and still rock up in early 2022 with an absolute God tier car that was honed and optimized for the new rules and regs, because their 2021 car was basically ready, set for it. Adrian Newey is the ground effect God, isn't he? Like, Mercedes, on the other hand, ill prepared, engine merchants benefiting and profiteering from an extra anywhere between 30 to 40 brake on the rest. So all that downforce tacked onto the top of their car. Again, didn't translate right. No longer currency in the new rule and reg set, when 80% of the downforce is going to come from the Venturi tunnels, the underbody of the car. Mercedes were not ready. Shout out to Kevin Hart. Just another reason to let your children become their own people. Oh, Macon, are we going to get that techie? Are you getting techie about pushy parents? No, I think there's at the highest level, I think there's something to be said for pushy parents and them ultimately. I mean, look at Serena and Vina. It happens too frequently for us to ignore it as far as facilitating outcomes at the highest level. Maybe it's the cost of doing business. Would Max Verstappen be Max Verstappen without Joss? I doubt it very much. Be a good driver, but since he's got an F1 driver as a dad, that kind of, I don't know, that nature plus nurture as symbiosis is a different level. It's a hard combination for any one of those other buds on the grid to fight against. Most of those other guys, whether it's Charles or Lewis, have one, not both nature and nurture, right? It's interesting that we're going to get techie. Selvin says some flash in a pan run-ins. No one will remember in 5 years. So Selvin says, Checo, I think you're talking about. Right, guys, I'm going to run. It's been a pleasure. but I've got to go and be a part-time husband and a part-time father. Some will say. Funky. What's Funky saying? Funky causing mischief. Let's have a look. Just another here. Michael says Joss has managed Max flawlessly. I don't know about flawlessly, Michael, for all his issue. I don't know about flawlessly. I think if you were to go back in a retrospective, I think even Joss would say that he could have done things differently. I think even he in his truthful moments. I mean, leaving your son on the roadside for his mum to come and pick up. That's a bit hard. I know tough love is good sometimes, but I mean, you know what I mean? I'm not sure about that. But no, he's done well. Max is a demon. Max is a demon. Right, back same time tomorrow. 10 a.m. British Standard Time. Going through news and discussing all things F1. A lot of people have said that I've been overly harsh. Just quickly on this, just wanted to make this point. A lot of people scorched earth time now, since we're so far into the stream. Check this out. A lot of people... To a couple of the videos that I've made earlier on today about the Checo Perez thing, me asking how and why and questioning the gap between meritocracy and nepotism as far as it plays out in the Checo Perez story. A lot of people said, Checo Perez fans, by the way, called me out for being harsh. I don't think I'm being harsh. As long as I've been watching F1, I cannot not judge a driver on their merits. If Checo Perez was nailing it this year, as he did so brilliantly in the latter, particularly in the latter stage of the 2021 season, you're not going to hear anything out of my mouth except for credit, because he would have earned it. Similarly and conversely, however, if he's underperforming, particularly if we're using Maximilian Verstappen as a barometer, which isn't a fair test. We're talking to truth here. They're very different drivers and their uppermost ceilings are set at very different levels. However, again, a difference in extents, not kinds. To underperform Max Verstappen is one thing, but to underperform Max Verstappen to the extent which the Mexican Minister of Defense has been underperforming him over the past 3 or 4 races. Bowling ball settings, turn 1. At the Miami Grand Prix, not getting out of Q2 and then not getting out of Q1 most recently, notoriously at the Monaco Grand Prix. That for me is absolutely unacceptable, and don't buy for a second that Christian Horner won't be having these conversations. His hand has been forced on the back of the allegations and the uncertainty around Max Verstappen. He's appeasing the latter and repaying a debt if you're talking about the former. A Lannister always pays his debts, Game of Thrones. And Christian Horner is nothing if not loyal, especially not to his bloody drivers. Mention no names. Mexican Minister of Defense, Checo Perez. And with that, congratulations, mate. Checo, go out and buy yourself some lottery tickets this weekend, mate. Because you, I feel like you're due a jackpot. Fortuitous circumstances. 2-year contract extension, not a 1+1, a proper 2-year deal, the likes of which are not being handed out to 34-year-old F1 drivers. Tells you all you need to know. But I digress.